Gene Hackman, the two-time Academy Award-winning actor known for his powerful screen presence and wide-ranging performances, has long been a figure of fascination both in Hollywood and in his quieter years of retirement. Alongside him is his wife, Betsy Arakawa, a former classical pianist and businesswoman who has mostly remained out of the limelight. Together, the couple has lived a life far removed from the chaos of celebrity culture. However, recent reports have dragged their names back into public discourse, and not for a reason either would have expected. According to newly surfaced complaints and legal documents, one of the properties associated with Hackman and Arakawa has become the center of an alarming controversy. The property, described in scathing detail by inspectors and legal authorities, has been labeled a breeding ground for infestation, plagued by dead rodents, feces, and other unsanitary conditions that have shocked both neighbors and officials alike. The situation first came to light when local authorities in the region where the property is located received a wave of complaints from nearby residents. Several individuals alleged that a foul odor had been lingering in the area for weeks, if not months, and that there were visible signs of pest activity extending beyond the borders of the Hackman-Arakawa estate. What started as a mere nuisance complaint quickly escalated when health inspectors arrived on the scene. According to official reports, what they encountered was nothing short of a public health hazard. The property in question, believed to be one of several owned by the couple, was found in a state of extreme disrepair, littered with decomposing animal remains, rodent nests, and layers of excrement that coated the floors and structural elements of the building. Investigators also noted that certain parts of the estate were completely inaccessible due to the level of contamination, and hazmat teams were called in to safely assess the extent of the infestation. The public reaction was swift and harsh. Neighbors expressed both concern and outrage, some even going as far as to threaten legal action if immediate steps were not taken to rectify the issue. Several described the experience of living near the property as unbearable, citing respiratory problems, increased pest activity in their own homes, and an overall fear of what the environmental contamination might mean for their health and property values. One resident, who asked to remain anonymous, described waking up to the sound of scratching in their attic, only to find a family of rats had taken up residence, presumably migrating from the nearby Hackman-Arakawa lot. Others said that flies and other vermin had become a near-constant presence, despite their best efforts to seal their homes and maintain cleanliness. As the story unfolded, many were left wondering how such a well-known couple, who had the means, resources, and presumably the sense of responsibility, could allow a property of theirs to deteriorate to such a level. Hackman, now in his 90s, has lived largely outside the public eye since retiring from acting in the early 2000s. He and Arakawa have been spotted occasionally in their Santa Fe residence, where they are said to lead a quiet, unassuming life. However, questions soon arose about the nature of their involvement with the infested property. Was it a rental? A neglected investment? An inheritance that had gone unmanaged? While neither Hackman nor Arakawa have issued a public statement addressing the issue directly, sources close to the couple suggest that they may not have been fully aware of the extent of the problem. According to court filings and documentation released through public records, the property had not been inspected in over a year. Maintenance records were either incomplete or non-existent, and it appears that no active tenants had been living in the structure for several months prior to the inspection. Nevertheless, some argue that negligence of this magnitude constitutes a serious breach of responsibility, especially considering the environmental and health risks involved. Pest control experts brought in by local agencies revealed that the infestation was not limited to just rodents. Termites, cockroaches, and other invasive species had taken root within the walls, insulation, and foundation of the house. In some places, fecal matter had built up to such a degree that structural integrity was called into question. More disturbing were the photos released by inspectors. In one image, a dead rat lies in a pile of decomposed insulation near a half-collapsed wall. In another, rodent droppings cover what appears to be a kitchen counter, suggesting that the infestation may have started long before it was formally discovered. Health officials cited multiple code violations, including failure to maintain habitable conditions, exposure to biohazardous materials, and a lack of pest control measures. Cleanup crews wearing full-body protective suits were seen hauling away bags of contaminated debris, each one sealed and marked for hazardous waste disposal. The case has raised broader questions about the responsibilities of high-profile property owners, particularly those with significant real estate holdings. While Hackman's acting career is not in question, the association with such a shocking health hazard has undoubtedly cast a shadow over his personal image. Some legal experts speculate that fines could be levied if negligence is proven in court. Others suggest that civil suits from neighbors affected by the infestation may be in the works. Thus far, no lawsuits have been formally filed, but the potential for litigation looms large. The story also highlights the complex and often underestimated challenges of property management among the ultra-wealthy. It's easy to assume that affluence guarantees responsible ownership, but the reality can be far more nuanced. Wealthy individuals like Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa often own multiple properties across various states or even international borders, each requiring its own maintenance schedule, legal compliance, and regular oversight. These sprawling real estate portfolios are typically managed by third-party companies or individual caretakers, but even professional teams are not immune to communication lapses, oversight failures, or simple neglect. When properties sit vacant for extended periods, especially in areas prone to pests or harsh weather conditions, they can deteriorate rapidly if not vigilantly maintained. Leaks go unnoticed, infestations flourish, and minor problems escalate into major health risks. Still, while logistical complexities may help explain how such an issue can begin, they do not justify the level of decay that occurred in this particular instance. Critics have rightly pointed out that someone, somewhere along the line, be it a caretaker, property manager, or the owners themselves, should have been monitoring the property's condition and addressing red flags before they spiraled out of control. In the case of the Hackman-Arakawa property, the sheer severity of the situation, dead rodents, accumulated feces, structural concerns, suggests more than just casual oversight. It indicates a prolonged period of neglect, potentially spanning many months, if not longer. Legal experts argue that even if the couple had no direct involvement in the day-to-day management of the property, ultimate responsibility remains with them. The law does not distinguish between absentee landlords and hands-on owners when it comes to public health violations. Property ownership carries inherent obligations, including ensuring that the premises do not pose a danger to neighbors or the environment. The city's health department reiterated that ignorance is not a viable defense, especially when surrounding communities may suffer the consequences of such lapses in judgment or oversight. What has exacerbated the backlash is the complete absence of transparency from Hackman's representatives. Media outlets have attempted multiple times to secure a statement or clarification, but those efforts have thus far yielded no response. No public apology has been offered, nor has there been any indication of outreach to the affected neighbors, many of whom are demanding accountability. This vacuum of communication has only intensified public scrutiny. Some view the silence as a deliberate tactic to avoid legal liability, while others speculate that the couple may genuinely be unaware of the full extent of the problem or the storm it has generated. Regardless of their awareness, the lack of engagement has had a compounding effect, allowing the narrative to spiral out of their control and creating a perception of disregard for the community impacted by their property's condition. Meanwhile, the cleanup process has proven to be a monumental undertaking. Pest control companies have reported that they are dealing with a multi-layered infestation that goes far beyond surface-level cleanup. Entire sections of the home must be gutted and rebuilt due to irreversible contamination from rodent waste and insect colonies. HVAC systems are being dismantled and sanitized, as they were found to be circulating contaminated air, posing further health risks. Deodorizing the property has proven difficult, as the stench of decomposition had seeped into the walls and flooring. Sanitation experts describe the scene as one of the most severe cases they've encountered in a private residence. Insurance coverage for such damage is often limited, particularly if the cause is deemed negligence rather than an unforeseen event. Therefore, the out-of-pocket expenses could soar into the hundreds of thousands, depending on how much structural remediation is necessary. City officials are not taking the situation lightly. They've indicated that this incident could lead to broader legislative reforms aimed at preventing similar situations in the future. Among the proposals being considered are more frequent and unannounced inspections of unoccupied properties, especially those owned by absentee landlords. Additionally, city council members are discussing the possibility of implementing fines that scale with property value, ensuring that high net worth individuals face meaningful consequences when their negligence leads to public health hazards. There is also talk of requiring owners of vacant homes to submit regular condition reports certified by licensed inspectors. While such regulations may face opposition from property rights advocates, community members argue that the health and safety of neighborhoods must come first. For now, the Hackman-Arakawa property remains under official watch, its future uncertain, as cleanup continues and the public awaits some form of resolution, or at the very least, an explanation. What remains most baffling to the public is how a couple as seemingly stable, grounded, and private as Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa could find themselves entangled in a controversy so uncharacteristic of the image they've carefully maintained over the years. Hackman, now well into his 90s, is widely remembered not just for his illustrious career and Oscar-winning performances, but for the deliberate distance he kept from the more chaotic trappings of Hollywood. He retired from acting nearly 2 decades ago and has since lived quietly, focusing on writing and spending time in the serene environment of Santa Fe, New Mexico. His reputation has long been that of a disciplined, almost austere individual who shunned excess, avoided the spotlight, and maintained a strong sense of personal order. Similarly, Betsy Arakawa has always projected a sense of calm professionalism. Though not a public figure in the traditional sense, her role as a businesswoman and supporter of Hackman has positioned her as someone with a strong sense of responsibility and composure. Together, they have appeared as the archetype of the mature, reclusive couple who opted for a quiet life far from the Hollywood limelight. That long-cultivated image, gracious, discreet, and responsible, is now being questioned in light of the shocking revelations surrounding their property. To see their names associated with such a grotesque and unsanitary situation, a home filled with dead rodents, layers of feces, and biological hazards, has created a cognitive dissonance for many fans and observers. It's a stark contrast to the serene lifestyle they were believed to have led, and it has forced many to reevaluate their perceptions of the couple. The scandal has become more than just a tabloid spectacle. It's turning into a symbolic moment, a cautionary tale about the pitfalls of absentee ownership, the blind spots that can occur even among the most seemingly responsible individuals, and the illusion of control that often accompanies wealth. It underscores a truth that many don't like to confront. Fame and fortune do not insulate individuals from basic duties, especially when it comes to property and community impact. There's a tendency to view the ultra-wealthy as being beyond reproach in these matters, but this incident proves otherwise. The property, neglected for what appears to be a significant amount of time, had become more than an eyesore. It had transformed into a genuine health risk for the surrounding neighborhood. That, for many, is where sympathy wanes and anger takes its place. In the wake of the scandal, local officials and community members have begun using the situation to advocate for broader change. Activists and neighborhood associations argue that this is not merely an isolated incident involving a famous couple, but rather a symptom of a systemic issue. In many cities across the United States, wealthy individuals purchase properties as investments or secondary homes, often leaving them unoccupied for long periods without adequate oversight. This creates gaps in accountability and enforcement, which can lead to conditions like those uncovered at the Hackman-Arakawa property. In some cases, entire blocks can be destabilized by the neglect of just one absentee owner, especially when infestations or structural decay spread beyond the boundaries of a single home. There is a growing push for new legislation aimed specifically at addressing these challenges. Policy proposals include requiring all vacant property owners to register with the city and provide ongoing maintenance reports, potentially under threat of escalating fines or legal action. Some municipalities are also exploring the option of creating public databases of neglected properties, allowing communities to monitor and report on dangerous conditions before they escalate. Whether these changes are enacted in the wake of this incident remains to be seen, but the momentum is undeniable. For Hackman and Arakawa, the road ahead is uncertain. Their silence thus far has done little to contain the spread of speculation and criticism. Without a clear statement or acknowledgement, the public is left to draw its own conclusions, many of which have not been flattering. Legal experts suggest that a statement, even a simple acknowledgement of the issue and a commitment to resolving it, could help stem the tide of negative press. However, the longer they remain silent, the more the narrative continues to develop without their input. Already, the situation is being dissected in media outlets, online forums, and local news broadcasts, each adding layers to a story that shows no signs of disappearing anytime soon. For Hackman, a man who built a legacy on strength, control, and gravitas, being thrust into this type of scandal is deeply ironic. It is not his film career or acting missteps that have brought him unwanted attention in his twilight years, but rather a domestic oversight, an earthly, mundane, yet socially impactful failure. Whether through negligence, miscommunication, or unfortunate oversight, he and his wife are now central figures in a narrative of urban decay and environmental irresponsibility. The images from the inspector's reports, graphic and unsettling, will now linger alongside the memories of his most iconic film roles. As time unfolds, they may find a way to reclaim control of the narrative, but for now, the damage has been done, the property has become infamous, and the consequences of that infamy are still being measured.